கௌஷிக் எனக்கு கனெக்ட் போட்டு பண்ணி கொடு. கௌஷிக் சத்தமே கேட்க மாட்டேங்குதுப்பா. கௌஷா நான் பேசுறேன்.
I want sir.
Tanvi sir, yes. You are on. Hello, am I audible, sir? Hello, am I audible, sir? Tanvi sir. Hello. Hello, Tanvi sir.
இப்போ இவங்கெல்லாம் ஃப்ரம் அப்படி இப்படின்னு நம்மளும் அதே மாதிரி போகணும், என்ன பண்றது?
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tanvi sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay, sir, sure.
Maria ma'am. Hello. Am I talking to Harvina ma'am or Maria ma'am? Audible, sir. Dipali ji, am I audible?
Hey!
Yes, sir.
Ada, sana kira instant சொல்ல மாட்டியாடா?
Hello, Dipali ji. Dipali ji.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
மீட்டிங் பாத்துக்கோங்கம்மா.
Hello. Maria ma'am. Hello, Maria ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Miss, can you start it? Or can we wait for Miss? 100 people are there, right? So we cannot admit more, right? And I have also sent the link, right, to the waiting people.
Yes, sir.
So shall we
I'm
start?
waiting for our principal to join, sir. Our principal will be joining us.
Yeah. What is her name? Hermina?
Sister Lucia Rose.
Lucia Rose. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hermina.
Namaskar, sir.
Yeah, namaskar, sir.
Hello.
Please.
Namaskar.
Please, namaskar, sir.
Jaswant sir, is everything okay?
Yes, sir. Everything is
Tanveer
okay.
here.
Yes, sir. Everything is okay. We have 100 people now, and I also sent the link to the others, right, who are waiting, out of this wave, right?
Yeah.
So just one principal is going to come, Lucia Roach, and we are waiting for her.
Okay, sir. Okay. Those who have missed can join us on YouTube also.
Yeah. Yes.
Sir, has YouTube been connected, sir?
Yes, YouTube has. Yes, YouTube has been connected.
Yes.
Other participants are shouting to join, I think. Yeah, see, the trouble is of the 100 limit. It may take a little while, for the video to begin the stream on YouTube, but we have started it there. If any participants who sees or watches a little bit of a delay on YouTube, it will sync within no time. By the time we start this meeting, we will have both the platforms functioning perfectly.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. The number exceed item.
Yes, ma'am.
I think. Okay.
Yeah. Hello.
So, can we start, ma'am?
Sir, shall we start?
Yes.
Said she'll be joining in YouTube, sir.
Okay. So you can.
Shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, Hermina, start.
Good afternoon, participants. A hearty welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining with us. This is Mrs. Hermina, Assistant Professor of English, St. Mary's College, Tuticorin, leading the webinar for you. Rereading Keats by Professor Jasvantkumar Rathod, Assistant Professor of English, Government Arts and Commerce College, Netra. Participants, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type in the chat box so that the speaker shall answer to it at the end of the session. So now, without any further ado, we shall proceed with the webinar. I request our head of the department, Mrs. Maria Sahaya Sharmila, and the coordinator to welcome the speaker. Over to you, Ms. Maria Sahaya Sharmila.
Thank you, Hermina ma'am. Good afternoon to all gathered here. Warm greetings from the Department of English, SSC, St. Mary's College, Autonomous, Thuthukudi. I am delighted to welcome all the learned professors and students to this academic endeavor, rereading Keats psychoanalytically. I would acknowledge the presence of our principal, Dr. Sister Lucia Rose, a pillar of support for all our endeavor, and Sister Mary Joyce Baby, our director, whose love and support encourage us in all we do. Welcome, sister. I am glad to introduce Mr. Jasvantkumar Rathod, Assistant Professor of English, Government Arts and Commerce College, Netrang, Gujarat. Sir has done his education, BA, MA, MPhil at M. Chandracharya North, Gujarat University, Patna. He is at present pursuing his doctoral degree from the same university. Sir has cleared NET in the year 2012 and SET in the year 2016. He has also done his B.Ed Scope Bullets, a specialization in English language from Cambridge University, UK. He has also earned degrees in computer and Hindi. Sir has a good and varied working experiences at various institutions, holding important academic responsibilities. His academic achievements runs to pages, of which I would like to highlight a few. He was a member of State Resource Group and contributed in the editing of school English textbooks published by Government of Gujarat. He received the Best Educationist Award by International Institute of Education and Management, New Delhi in 2017. He has served as President of Alliance International Club, Nizar. He is coordinating Ek Bharat, Shrishat Bharat project in his college. He has been invited as an expert speaker by various colleges. He has attended many conferences and workshops and has presented papers. He has published research papers in peer-reviewed and in UGC-approved journals with high impact factor. His research publication have scored him RG 9.67 at researchgate.net. Sir has delivered more than 33 online lectures during this lockdown period. We are indeed fortunate to have him to deliver yet another lecture. He is simple, friendly, unassuming, and easy to approach. Thank you for accepting our invitation, sir, and I welcome you, sir, to this session. I once again welcome all gathered here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Let me share the screen first. So my topic is, sir, sharing is there now. Tanvi sir, can you see the sharing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So my topic today is now rereading Keats, John Keats, psychoanalytically. I was actually inspired by Dr. Tanvir Ahmed. Right. Previous day he presented us the theory of psychoanalysis, and that's why I was interested in it. So I started with this thing and working on this thing. So what is actually psychoanalytic criticism? Psychoanalytic criticism, which uses some of the techniques of psychoanalysis in the interpretation of literature. It assumes that artistic creation is the indirect projection or a disguised production of the repressed desires, mental conflicts, and unfulfilled dreams. It exposes the interactions between the conscious and unconscious elements of the author and his characters. So it is, in the one way you can find it is a projection, transference, as well as exposition or exploration of somewhat your instinctual behavior, your mental trauma and tensions. before starting my analysis, I would like to also share you something. See, nowadays there are many interpretations. Even Ronald Barthes, one of the modern critics, he said that the author is dead. Now we all are authors, right? She is no more, and there is no authority at all on the text. So the text which is published, the text which is printed, the text which we read, right? That is different, and the text which we imply, that is also different. So what we get means the text is an individual entity, right? It is now subjective, right? So that's why we do not have text, but we have plural, that is called text, right? So there are multiple ways of reading a text. You can create your own text, right? So Hamlet can be misread from many angles, from many perspectives, and your perspective is also right. My perspective is also right. Your angle or your interpretation must be respected by me, and my interpretation must be appreciated by you. So my interpretation can be also challenged, right? It can be also rectified. Let me confess this, right? Because it is a larger scope of subjective criticism, and it is I feel it very strongly that it is open for more interpretation. You can interpret it in your own ways, right? And that's why this is the last line: everything is fair in love, war, and literature. So you can have your own meaning, you can have your own images, or you can have your own impressions about any literary topic or book. So what are my objectives? My objectives are to provide a critical overview of psychoanalytic theory. Second objective is to explore the connections among an author, his or her work, and mindset. And third one is to analyze Keats and his works, specifically his two odes, because I don't want to make it very extensive presentation, and I don't want to make it very large, right? So I specifically selected two odes: ode on a Grecian urn and ode to a nightingale, right? And I want to dissect that odes, examine that odes, investigate that odes psychoanalytically. This is my you can say aim. Now let us, and I also have some limitations, and that's why I also based my interpretation to only Sigmund Freud, and this can be called a Freudian interpretation, right? Because I do not examine Lacanian point of view. I also failed to examine Jungian point of view. I did not rate them, right? I just focused on Freud. So what he says about language? He says that language explores our personality. It is language which can talk about our character. It is language which shows us a mirror, and it shows our character. It shows that who am I, or who are you, right? So language is very important, but it provides our reflections. It exposes the hidden. Then he says about language that it also exposes the desires in a veiled form. So language can be a medium to explore your repressed desires. Language can be a tool to write down your dreams or the desires which you cannot express openly in some traditional socio-cultural environment. So it is a symbolic representation of our wishes. So what we wish, we pen down, right? And it is a symbolic presentation of our dreams and desires. It is the metaphoric representation of our desires, our repressed desires. It is a medium of depicting our desires. It can be used as a tool. It can be used as a medium. It is helpful, all right, to present our repressed things, our unconscious. So these are some observations of psychoanalysis. And I would also like to confess that most of them are not scientifically proved. Psychoanalysis is a theory of interpretation which calls into question the common sense facts of consciousness. It hypothesizes that there are certain stages of socialization, and each of which have their own problems of invasions from the unconscious. So from the early age, we find some stages of our life, and in these stages, we also face naturalization, or you can say processes of naturalization and socialization. And when going through these processes, we have some problems, we have some traumas, we have some tensions, we have some conflict. And these conflicts are stored in the unconscious part of our mind. The neurotic and psychotic disorders are common in all human beings. See, all human beings are basically crazy. All human beings are basically mad. All human beings are neurotic. Means, in some way or other, we have some you can say characteristic of neuroticism. In some way or other, we also have some psychotic disorders. They may erupt, they may not. They may appear, they may not. Sometimes we transform this. Sometimes we transmute these disorders into our writing, into our actions. Sometimes we don't, right? So we are social animal, and we have to surrender to the socio-cultural environment of any nation. And that's why we manage the psychotic disorders, right? Uh, I will tell you later on how we will, right? It shows their mismatch between bodily desires and sexual come social. So there is a mismatch, right? We have bodily desires and we have our social role, right? So there is something called a conflict arising out of this social role. So when we think about our socio-political or socio-cultural role, right? So we try to repress these bodily desires, right? Then the overpowering of them makes them visit the psychiatrist. Sometimes we become very crazy. Sometimes we think that we are right. We are obsessed. We are possessed by something, some idea, some passion, some emotion. And this overpowering of these ideas, right, that leads us to somewhat called craziness or madness. And that means one has to visit the psychiatrist for for cure. Yeah. So there are some critics who observe when we examine a text or an author psychoanalytically, they say that it is unscientific method, and we have to use something kind of assumptive kind of thing. It is means we have to assume that maybe he is suffering from, maybe the character is a victim of, right? So it cannot be realistic according to these critics, or it cannot be rational or scientific to observe, to examine, to dissect the character or the creator psychoanalytically. Then we try to enter into the unknown domain, and therefore our interpretations may not be most correct or authentic. Because what we are doing, we are dissecting someone's mind. What we are doing, we are finding out some tensions in the nerves of our mind, and the mind is very strange. Means it is not my mind, it is someone's mind. It is the mind of Keats, it is the mind of Keats' character, it is the mind of, you can say, Hamlet, right? So that interpretation, that implication may not be correct. These are the views of some critics. Then we try to penetrate ineptly psychobiography and all manners of vulgar Freudianism on the innocent art object. So critics say that art is an innocent kind of profession, and a book is sometimes written innocently. It has some socio-cultural repercussions. It has something called socio-cultural domain, and when we enter in the mental domain of that character or mental area of the character, we avoid socio-cultural conditions, socio-cultural circumstances. We will see it. Yeah. So, critics point out some limitations when we examine a work of art psychoanalytically. They say that we neglect social and public. We enter into someone's personal life. We enter into someone's life, which is very, someone's mind, which is very intricate. Means we are entering into someone's bedroom, right? And when we are entering into someone's bedroom, we are avoiding or neglecting social as well as public environment, socio-cultural circumstances. And critics also say that when you think that text has multiple authors. So text is not a text. Text has been influenced by many writers and many writings, right? So it is created out of network of social relations. And third thing, we also avoid ideology because we enter into the dreams and fantasy of a person. We also enter, means we try to enter into the dreams fantasy, which means that we try to go through or examine or enter into someone's mindset. Okay, let us see. To examine any work or author psychoanalytically, but this is a counter argument that to examine any work or author psychoanalytically is an innovative attempt. Why? Number one, because dreams are creations from the author's unsatisfied, unconventional roles in his socio-cultural life. So we are not ignoring that socio-cultural life, but dreams, desires, passions, obsessions, possessions, these are all the productions due to that socio-cultural restraints, due to that limitations, due to that Lakshman Rekhas of socio-cultural life. Then author and reader both are subject to the laws of unconscious. Means we all have that unconscious. We all have that storehouse of that depressed desires or that repressed one. Then psychoanalytic theory brings out the unconscious aspect of utterance through its concentration on the relationship between sexuality and social role. So it is a kind of dilemma, right? When you are entering into someone's mental realm, right? You also try to find out his social role, right? So how was he, what was his role as per the socio-cultural norms are concerned, right? And why these socio-cultural responsibilities, they ban the man or they prevent the man, a human being, right, to you can say enjoy his freedom. So because man is free basically, but man is not free socio-culturally. Let us see. If we investigate any text psychoanalytically, we find that all its utterances are concerned with satisfaction of the body, which have become socialized, right? So we all want to satisfy our bodily desires. We all want to satisfy our mental desires. We all we all have ambitions. We all have love. We all have feelings. But these feelings are managed, they are controlled, they are rectified in the light of socio-cultural roles. Then it provides us psychoanalysis or psychoanalytical criticism, literary particularly. It provides us reread the text once again. Generally we read the text traditionally that okay, in the modern society man has become machine and all these things. Why? Because industrialization, because of that LPG, right? Liberalization, privatization, globalization, right? So these are the external things. But when we read or when we examine a text psychoanalytically, we reread the text and we have to reread the biography of the author, keeping in mind his or her social roles and instinctual desires. So we enter into the domain, we enter into someone's internal things. Okay, let me think about it. Yeah. Sigmund Freud said that unconscious is very important part. Unconscious is an important realm in someone's mind. It functions in the production and the consumption of art. So, what have I stored? I have stored repressed desires. I have stored my hopes, my expectations, my ambitions, and these are stored in my unconscious. And when I pen down them in a novel or in a book, I am producing, right, something. Something is some artistic thing, some artistic book, right, out of these unconscious desires. So actually, as Freud said that like dream, a book is also exploration of or an exploration of your repressed desires. Then he introduced the main concept of psychoanalytic theory. He also introduced the models of psyche, right? He also introduced the concept of repression, the role of sexual instincts, human mind, and psychical apparatus. Let us talk. Let us think about his ideas. He says that there are 3 points of view. Number one, dynamic as far as the mindset is concerned, as far as our human brain or mind is concerned. Dynamic, economic, and topographical. Dynamic point of view says that it stays with the interplay of forces within the mind arising from tensions that develops from when instinctual drives meet the necessities of external reality. So dynamic part of that means realm of that, it shows us the interplay of conflict, right? When we face the external reality, right? When we face the socio-cultural reality, then when the mind comes into being out of the body, it is inseparably connected to feelings of pleasure and pain. Then economic view, pleasure results from the decrease in the degree to which the body is disturbed by any stimulus. Unpleasure results from the increase in disturbance. So whenever we have an expectation, whenever we have a desire, a hope, a dream, when it is satisfied in our present socio-cultural environment, it provides us pleasure. But when it is not satisfied, when these things are not fulfilled in this current realistic socio-cultural environment, then we got disturbed, and it increases our displeasure or unpleasure. To adjust with the reality, one has to control the basic instinct, right? So it is a norm that means we have to face the reality daily. momentarily, right? And while facing the reality, we have to control our sexual desires, we have to control our, you can say, emotional desires, extreme kind of emotional desires, right? And these means when we control them, right, we have tension, we have stress. So there is conflict between pleasure principle and reality principle. Pleasure principle says that, okay, miss, go for it, and reality principle says don't go for it. So it is just to be or not to be, that's the question, right? Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, right? So shall I face that social norms? Should I revolt against it? No, I am a social animal, I should not do. So the body has to learn to postpone pleasure, and that's why, miss, I want to do something, but it is miss, it is not permitted in that socio-cultural environment. So what should I do? I should postpone that pleasure. I should postpone that activity, that action, and that is repressed in my unconscious. Topographical. Freud sees mind as having threefold divisions: conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. These three subsystems mediate the conflict of energies. Okay, we will see it later. Yeah. He has also provided some concept. Id, ego, and superego. Id is a term applied retrospectively to the instinctual drives that spring from the constitutional needs of the body. While ego is developed out of the id, it is an agency which regulates and opposes the drives. Superego is a representative of parental and social influences upon the drives, a transformation of them. Now there is an interplay among id, ego, and superego, and that interplay brings conflict. That interplay brings somewhat tension in the human mind. Right? We will see it later. Yes, conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious. What is conscious? There are three realms according to Freud. Number one, conscious. Consciousness is equated with the perception system, the sensing and ordering of the external world. So when I am aware that this is the world. I am aware that I am a social animal. I am aware that I am assistant professor. I am aware that I am a teacher. That is consciousness, right? So it is our perception system, how we think, means how we see how we perceive the things, how we perceive the actions. That is consciousness. Secondly, pre-consciousness. It covers those elements of experience which can be called into consciousness at will. And third one, the most important thing, is unconscious. It says that it is made up of all that has been kept out of pre-conscious and conscious system. So those which things, which actions, they are not permissible, they are not permitted in the society, they are not, I cannot do that, right? So all that don'ts, right, they are stored in the unconscious. These are my repressed desires. These are my unfulfilled dreams, unfulfilled expectations, unsatisfied, or you can say unfulfilled, you can say hopes. Let us see. Yeah, unconscious. Unconscious is a strong influence on our actions. We cannot ignore it. We cannot say that just we have postponed it. Okay, I wanted to have some ice cream, right? But I cannot. So I have postponed it, right? I have postponed it. But it is there in my unconscious mind, right? So it has a strong influence in our actions. It plays a decisive role, right, to make a character. Then it can be regulated, it can be controlled, and it can be replaced. So you can regulate the thing, you can control the thing, all right, and it can be replaced. Let me give you a very good example, right? I have seen a movie called Welcome, right? And in a Welcome, there is a very famous dialogue: control Majnu by control. Now what he's saying? He is saying that control your emotions, control your feelings, control your passions, because you are staying, or you are with the socio-cultural environment. You should not do that. So all these don'ts, all this unpermissible, all these things which are not permissible to the social, in the purview of socio-cultural roles, they are regulated, they are controlled, and they are repressed. Now, instinctual desires and repressed ideas and images are there in our unconscious. Means unconscious is like a well. We store it, right? Our desires, our repressed ideas. Means I want to do this, I want to do that, all right? But my society does not permit it. But my culture or religion or my nationality does not permit it. So these desires, these images are stored in our psyche. That is called unconscious. It is not fixed. One cannot fix it. So it is changing, and it has a dynamic overplay, means interplay, and we have shift of feeling from one to another. We should not miss. Just I have an idea. Just I have a feeling. Right. I have a strong emotion. I can store it, but it can appear. It can erupt in a different form. Right. So it is like a devil, or it is like a god, who can change the shape, who can change the appearance. Right. So it is like a fairy, right? It is like an angel which can, or who can share, change the shape. Now let us talk about the idea of repression. How feelings are repressed, how our emotions are, how our passions are repressed. So we try to forget some desires, we try to ignore some desires. Man is a bundle of desires. Man is, you can say, a baggage of expectations. But all expectations are not fulfilled. And that's why we want to forget that. Well, we want to ignore that. We want to resolve that. But these are not forgotten. These are not ignored. These are not resolved. These unresolved conflicts are stored in our unconscious, right? And these unconscious, this realm, right? This area, right? That stores our unadmitted desires, right? Means I want to say something to someone, right? For example, let me tell you, I had a fight with my boss. I want to tell my boss that, oh, you are not good, you are very bad person, you are villain. But I cannot, because my professional life cannot permit it, my social life cannot permit it. So I will replace that desire. Now where the repressed desire will erupt, that I don't know. So it can appear, it can reappear in my domestic life, it can reappear in my personal life. I can fight with my wife, right? So it has, you can say, very complex character. It can change the shape, it can change the identity, even it can change the color. We force these things out of our conscious awareness, right? So out means we try to forcefully regress it, forcefully pressurize it, and it goes to the realm of unconscious. That's why it goes to that area of unconscious. Let us see. Okay, the id wants its, let me clarify, this is the clarification. The id wants its wishes satisfied, whether or not they are compatible with the external demands. The ego finds itself threatened by the pressures of the unacceptable wishes. Memories of these experiences, that is, images and ideas associated with them, become charged with unpleasurable feeling and are thus barred from consciousness. This is the operation known as repression. The essence of repression lies simply in turning something away and keeping it at a distance from the conscious. So id wants something, some wishes, some desires to satisfy, but socio-cultural environment, our constraints, our rules, our laws, rules and regulations, norms of society, cultural, cultural norms, these prevent us that you should not do that. Now what should be done? So we will think and we say that, okay, let us replace them. So that repressed ideas, repressed feelings, repressed passions, they went to or they go to a part or a realm that is called unconscious. Okay, let me admit some people. Yeah. Now, how this return of the repressed, like that return of Bahubali. Repression serves to keep guilt-laden wishes out of the conscious experience. So that we have repressed some things, some ideas, some desires, right? We think that, okay, now we have prevented, we have controlled, we have managed, but they are not manageable. They are not controlled. They are basically uncontrollable. They cannot be controlled, right? So the symptoms dreams parapraxis mark both the emergence of the forbidden wish and resistance to it. So they came out, they erupt in dreams, in parapraxis, in sleep of tongue, right? In writing a poetry, writing a poem, in shairis, they came out. So the drives or wishes can get through in disguise. They change their nature, they change their dress, they change their shape, and they come disguised, right? And that is called compromise formation of the return of the replaced. So they came, for example, I want to do something which is unsocial, which is anti-social or anti-cultural. I cannot do that, but I can do that in another shape, in another disguise. So I can do it in implicit way. So explicitly, the roles which cannot be performed are performed implicitly in hidden way. So process of sublimation, the replaced material is promoted to something grandeur or it disguised as something noble. Sometimes we have that, you can say, we go to trance and all these things. Nah? So we try to sublime, we try to sublimate that repressed desires. Okay. Now, to interpret a text psychoanalytically, why? Because a text is like unconscious, is an implicit and indirect expression of the author. It does not explore things directly, but the writer uses images, metaphors, and symbols. Right? Author writes a literary piece which is not an explicit or direct statement about his life or about his experiences. Right? But he or she shows it through imagery, symbolism, and metaphors. It shows his repressed desires and unfulfilled dreams. Now, events and characters described in that particular book or particular text, they are the indirect expressions of writer's own events. The character may be portrayed autobiographically. So one can change the shape, one can change the color, one can change the desires are disguised and now they are portrayed in the characters. The repressed feelings, they are penned down in someone's actions, right? So a book is actually an exploration of, a text is an exploration of someone's psyche, and particularly, specifically, it is an exploration of someone's unconscious. Okay, now which are the key strategies, right, to analyze or examine the text or any work of art psychoanalytically? One has to think about transference to find out how the character redirects his or her emotions. I will come again with these strategies when I will go to analyze that Keats' odes, right? Projection to find out how the author projects his or her repressed emotions into characters and their actions. Then we have to find out the defense mechanisms, psychic procedures for avoiding painful admissions and recognitions. Then Freudian slip or parapraxis, slips of the tongue, slips of pen, or unintended actions. All right. This is also, I think, I should give a very good example of Hamlet. All right. So Hamlet uses his words very methodologically, but he tries to appear a madman. He tries to appear crazy or crank, right? But he uses language very intellectual, right? So he can be also examined psychoanalytically. Okay. To relate the overt content with the conscious and the covert content with the unconscious of the writer. To pay close attention to the unconscious motives and feelings of the author or the characters. To identify the psychic context for the literary work. Individual psychodrama is preferred, which social drama of class conflict is ignored. So individual, see, it is when we examine the text psychoanalytically, we go to the internal realm of someone's person, someone's personality, right? We examine someone's mindset, right? We do not think about socio-cultural conflicts. We do not think about class. We do not think about social drama, but we prefer individual drama. Yeah. So to find out the distinction between the conscious and the unconscious of the author, to uncover the unconscious motives of the character or author, right? These are the strategies to examine the work of art or any text psychoanalytically. Now, some more, right? One has to examine, one has to investigate, one has to go into, one has to peep into the dreams, right? So actually Freud said that dreams like the text or text like the dream, right? Both are same. In dream we see the unfulfilled desires in disguise. In work of art, the author pens down. He writes about the unfulfilled desires or his wishes or his expectations or his hopes or his you can say passionate feelings or his or his overpowering emotions. And that's why let me also remind Wordsworth. What is poetry? Poetry is the exploration of powerful feelings, right? So their powerful feelings are there in a text. So like dream, they may be in disguised form, right? You cannot have that overt character. You cannot have the clear cut picture with clear cut portrayal of it, but it can be penned down implicitly. So displacement, one person or event is replaced by another, a symbolic substitution, right? Then condensation, a number of people, events, or meanings are combined and represented by a single image. Okay. Now, from this slide, I am starting to interpret John Keats' two odes, specifically two odes, Ode on a Grecian urn and Ode to the Nightingale, right? In psychoanalytical literary, in the keeping in mind psychoanalytical literary theory or psychoanalytically. Let me simplify it. Before going to it, let me tell you about some important event or some important events in his life. I quoted deaths. Keats was born on 31st October 1795 and died on 23rd February 1821. So he has a short life. Okay, let us remember this thing. He also faced deaths of his parents. Father died in 1804. He was only 9 when he was only 9 years old, and mother in 1810, 15 years when he was 15 years old. While nursing, his brother Tom also died, and he died in 1880. Okay, let us talk about his career. During 1811 to 1817, he engaged as an apprentice to a surgeon at Edmonton. He left his job because he felt he wanted to be a poet. It was his desire, it was his deep desire to be a poet. Then his work, when he wrote, his work was continuously criticized by some harsh critics. The hostile reviews of the Quarterly Review and the Blackwoods magazine, this hastened his death, as Byron says. Byron says that Keats was snuffed out by an article. Critics blame him as a Cockney poet. A dialect means a poet who writes in particular dialect. A local poet, not a national poet. And he was not a successful poet during his lifetime. He wrote in a letter, "I think I shall be among the English poets after my death." Let us keep in mind these things also. Love. Some biographical steps show that Keats had deep emotional attachment towards her mother, and her death was a shock to him. Next character is Frances Fanny Brown Linden. She is best known as the fiancée and muse to English romantic poet John Keats. So he was in love with Fanny Brown. Let us think about it. Now he has also written a love letter. Let me present a love letter. In that love letter, he said, "This moment I have set myself to copy some verses out here. I cannot proceed. Let me not read it, but let me read some important sentences." He said, "My love has made me selfish. I cannot exist without you. I am forgetful of everything, but seeing you again, my life seems to stop there. I see no further. You have absorbed me. I have a sensation at the present moment as though I was dissolving. I should be exquisitely miserable without the hope of soon seeing you. I should be afraid to separate myself far from you. My sweet Fanny, will your heart never change? My love, will it? I have no limit now to my love. You not came in just here. I cannot be happier away from you." Then he also says, I could be martyred for my religion. Love is my religion. I could die for that. I could die for you. My creed is love, and you are its only tenant. You have ravished me away by a path. Right? When we talk about that ravished, you can say earn. We'll think about it. Okay. Now, his mechanism, his defense mechanism. I have examined two odes, ode on a Grecian and ode to the Nightingale. I found that he has his defense mechanism, and it is implicitly portrayed in his odes. He wants to escape into nature, because for him nature is pure, word is impure. He writes, in a poem, Sleep and Poetry. The clouds were pure and the white as flocks nation. Right? It is in I stood tiptoe. Then the nature is gentle while the world is cruel. For him, the nature is gentle. The world is cruel. And he writes, what is more gentle than the wind in summer? So for him, nature is something which can provide him relief, which can provide him some solace, while the world is cruel, the world is bitter, the world is selfish. Let us talk about Ode to a Nightingale. Now he wants to escape to the world of Nightingale. He finds happiness in this world of nature, solace in this world. He says, but being too happy in thy happiness. Why? Was he not happy in his real world? This is also a question to ponder on. He wishes to enjoy this intoxication of his escape into the world of nature. Right? So in the very beginning of the poem, you will have that in the first, you can say, first 10 lines, you have that environment created by the poet. The environment or the atmosphere is, while you can say, quite intoxicated kind of environment. So he wishes to fade far away, dissolve and quite forget. What he wants to forget? He wants to fade far away. Why? The cruel world, and wishes to enter into the world of the nightingale. So for him, the world of nightingale is the world of solace. For him, the world of nightingale is the world of his dreams, his satisfaction, his passions, his emotions. And they are, that word is an unconscious word. That word is the word in which he has his repressed desires. So that word is free word in which he can enjoy, he can celebrate his repressed desires, or these repressed desires can erupt in this free world, because he cannot enjoy it, celebrate it, or he cannot, you can say, expose these desires in the real world, socio-cultural world. So he wishes to enter into the world of the nightingale, the world of dreams and fantasy, right? So the world of dream and the world of fantasy is very good word. That word is loved by him. He wants to go into that world. This is his escape. Now, Keats becomes numb and likes the drowsiness of his mind. He likes that unconscious. He thinks that why should I be conscious? Let me love that unconscious. Because he knows that his desires, his wishes can be fulfilled in this unconscious world, that world of nightingale. He likes to be happy in the imaginary world of the bird. The world creation created by Keats himself, and that creation is the creation of the repressed psyche of Keats. And because this is the creation from the repressed desires, right? So the expectations or the passions or the feelings which cannot be satisfied in this actual world can be satisfied, right, in this world of the bird. He wants to fly with the help of the wings of poetry. Poetry can be a solace to him. Poetry can be a tool, or poetry can be a medium of relief for him, right? Because in actual world, he is very unhappy. In actual world, there is competition. In actual world, there are deaths. In actual world, there are betrayals. In actual world, I can also connect that betrayal, because he has also written that poem, A Fairy Without, you can say the title is in maybe in another language. I have forgotten the title, but yes, The Fairy Without Mercy, right? That is the English of it. Right? La Belle Sans Mercy, right? Okay, but who is she? She's Fanny Brown. Okay. He wants to fly with the help of the wings of poetry. Poem is a kind of exposition of his repressed desires. Art is a medium to escape into the beautiful world of emotions, dreams, and imaginations. And he has deep desire to live because he knew that I am also suffering from some consumption. He knew that I am also suffering, means I will not live. He has that deep desire, deep urge. The word of Nightingale is the word of immortality for him. So there is no death in the word of Nightingale. And that's why he wants to enter into that. He knew that in this present world, in this external world, in the world of reality, he will die one day. Right? He has faced the deaths of his father, mother, brother. And he wants that something called permanence, something called immortal. And that immortal can be found in that the world of dream or the world of bird. Gracian. Yeah. In Gracianer, he writes, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, yes of pipes play on. Keats wishes to join the pipe players on the urn and to be lost in the world of art and beauty. Because he finds that the music of the dream, of the dreamy world, the world which is imaginative, that is more sweeter, right? And in the real, you can say in the real world, he cannot find sweet music, cannot find good relations, right? And that's why he enjoys the dream, because reality is cruel. The lovers on earth are young and immortal. And who is that lover? That lover is symbolically Keats. The lover is the representation, that repressed Keats. That lover is just the metaphysical production of Keats' personality. The sweetness of unheard music. Right? Repressed, dynamic, continuous, free from the socio-cultural constant. So the music, the pipe player plays, it has liberty, it has freedom, it is free from the socio-cultural norms. So he wants to be that pipe player. Secondly, see completeness of the work of art versus incompleteness of the world. He tries to draw a line between these two worlds, world of imagination, world of real, the real world, and the world of, you can say, feelings or imagination. He aspired love from Penny too. But it is his repressed desire that the love should be permanent. And that permanent love is not possible in the world, in the real world. That permanent love has the possibility in the world of art and beauty. That lovers on that urn, that lovers carved on that urn, though they are immobile, though they are stagnant, but they are permanent. Means that the pipe player will play the pipe eternally, right? And the girl, right, the woman on that urn, that would remain beautiful eternally. So that is his repressed, you can say, exploration or pictorial presentation of his repressed mindset, repressed desires. Passions which are pushed deep are evolving in the disguise of poetry. His passions are erupting, and this eruption of the passions are penned down in this poem. So, emotions for the happy love. he wanted a happy. He wanted happiness in love. But that happiness is not possible. He knew that happiness is not possible in the real world, because love has a temporal nature in the real world. He knew that love is incomplete in this real world. Love has the possibility of betrayal, frailty. Thy name is woman. Let me remind you, Hamlet, right? So frailty is there in the real world, but in the world of art, the characters that are carved on the urn, they are the real lovers. Means they are the imaginary lovers, but they love permanently. They have their feelings which are very pure. Let me admit some people. Yeah. Yeah. Why he wants to escape from reality? He writes, the weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows bare, and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow, and laden eye despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love find them beyond tomorrow. This is in Ode to Nightingale. So his repressed psyche is evolved, and he compares two worlds: world of nature, which is world of truth, which is world of beauty, and the real world, which is world of weariness, fever. See let me remind you the deaths, right? Fever, fret, deaths. It is the conflict between the mortal and the immortal. Mortal world is the real world, immortal world is the world of art, immortal world is the unconscious, and mortal world is the conscious. Dreams are immortal while reality is incomplete and tragic. It is the difference between art versus reality. It is the picture between, it is a very good manifestation of art versus reality presented by John Keats in this poem. Escape from reality. Now he projects, right? He tries to see. I have missed earlier. I have discussed about the concept of projection. When your emotions or your deep desires, right, or you can say your desires are not satisfied in the real world, right? They are stored in unconscious, and when they erupt in disguised form, and they erupt with something, with some new form, all right? And that, 1 minute please, that means you can also project, right, that desires into something new, something innovative, something, you can write a poem, you can write a book. So in Ode to Grecian, he writes, ah, happy, happy bow that cannot shade your leaves. Means nature is permanent. Means your world is very permanent. My world is not permanent. Nor ever be the spring adieu. Spring is forever there. And happy melodies unwearied for ever piping songs, for every new, for happy love, more happy, happy. He projects himself as the lover who is ever young and loves forever. So he wants to be that lover. Actually, he wanted to be that lover who can love forever. But reality did not permit him. He knew that he was going to die. And that's why this is the permanence of love he is seeking for. And that permanence of love is, he cannot do it. He is not God. He cannot do it in the real world. So he is doing it in the imaginary world. He is now the God of the poem. He is now the creator of the poem. Now he creates his own world in that poem. Right? This is called the eruption of regressed eruption of that you can say depth desire, means in-depth desires, right? And that eruption is positively is put into or penned down into a poem, and now he is the creator of this world which is permanent. So he said that okay, that real world which is imperfect, which is not permanent, but I will create from my repressed desires, I will create the world which is very permanent. And in that world no lover will cry, no miss, it would be a happy. Why? Because he witnessed that burning forest and parched it. It's all most of the family members, right? They died due to tuberculosis, and he was also facing that consumption. This is the picture of reality versus imagination. In reality, you cannot have that permanent world. In reality, you cannot have that true love. In reality, you cannot have that good days. But in creation, you can have. In imagination, you can have. Okay. Now, in earlier slide, I have put that. I have demonstrated that strategies, right? Let us talk these strategies in this, keeping in mind these poems. Transference, to find out how the character redirects his or her emotions, right? It is called transference. Keats redirects his emotions into the character. Now he is lover, and the lover is a permanent lover. The lover is a happy lover. The lover can play the pipe eternally. So what he cannot do or could not do in the real world, he is doing in the world of poetry, in the world which is created by his repressed desires. So projection. A projection is to find find out how the author projects her repressed emotions into characters, their actions. Here, John Keats projects himself as an eternal lover, a nightingale. So who is nightingale? Nightingale is the projection of that. It is you can say the return of the repressed. The lover is the return of the repressed. In the real world, he cannot fly, but in the world of imagination, he can fly. Right? So he wants to he wants to move, he wants to wander, and that's why he creates his nightingale out of his you can say desires, or out of his, you can say, passionate feelings. Defense mechanisms are used. They are the psychic procedures for avoiding painful admissions and recognitions. Now, kids know it fully that the lover carved on the urn will never meet his beloved, because it is stagnant. The picture, it is just a carving, right? So that lover can follow that beloved, but he cannot touch the beloved. He knew it, but he likes that stagnation because he wants to stop the time. He knew that he was also he would be also dead one day due to this tuberculosis. So he knew that he is going to die, and that's why his repressed psyche stops him, prevents him to enter to the real world. Rather, though this world is very stagnant, this world is not dynamic world, but let me enjoy this stagnation. Let me enjoy this stagnate or this world, though it is not mobile, though it is not dynamic. Let me be there, because this situation is more happier than the dynamic situation in the real world. So we have also Freudian slips of parapraxis. He wishes to stay in the world of nightingale, right? He has that he feels like he has taken some opium, and he writes something with about that word of Nightingale, that this word is though. Miss, you will go, Miss. He addresses Nightingale that though I have to live in this real world, but whatever your word is divine. Your word is very perfect. When we read his words psychoanalytically, we try to relate the word content with the conscious, right? So overtly we find that okay, it is just the poem on nature, right? But it is not. Overtly we find that okay, it is the poem about nature, about some Nightingale, about some Grecian art. It is because kids loved Grecian art. It is because kids loved nature. It is because he was living in a romantic age. So he wrote. No. If we misanalyze it, if we examine it or re-examine it in psychoanalytical theory, or keeping in mind the psychoanalysis, we find that it is the presentation of his wishes, it is the manifestation of his desires, and it is what he wanted. It is his lack, L-A-C-K. He wanted to be happy, right? So he created his own world. So he created his own poetry, and in his poetry is happy. So his poetry is just the manifestation of his unconscious. So we should pay close attention to the unconscious motives in his poetry and feelings of the authors and the characters. So we must know about his mindset. What he writes is important, but why he writes is more important. We try to identify the psychic context of his work. So beside that socio-cultural situations, beside because it was a romantic age, beside that he let us go back to nature movement, let us enjoy nature, beside the appreciation of nature, the nature created by John Keats, maybe his production of, or his transference of, or his manifestation of, or his projection of his deep delved desires, unfulfilled hopes, or unsatisfied feelings. So here Keats' individual psychodrama is there in the poems, in the Ode to Nightingale, Ode on a Grecian, right? And there is no social drama. He talks about okay love. He talks about he also he talks about the word. But one must miss when we want to criticize it, or when we want to interpret it, the poem psychoanalytically, we must concentrate on his psychodrama, his internal conflict between two words, word of reality and word of his you can say repressed desires. We should find out the distinction between the conscious and unconscious of Keats. Right? So consciously he knew that he's going to die. Consciously he knew that he had tragic circumstances. Right? But unconscious is there, and that unconscious inspires him, or you can say instigates him to write something which can provide him relief. So he knows that the world is imperfect and the life is, and his life is mortal, and that is why he takes shelter in the unconscious but blissful world of art and beauty. And that's why he said truth, beauty is truth. We should uncover the covert motive of Keats when we analyze him, when we examine him, when we dissect him psychoanalytically. We must peep into, we must examine the covert motive of the writer or the poet, and his urges, his life urges, his love urges must be kept in mind. So these are the projections. As a lover, he projects himself. As a Nightingale, he projects himself. And this is the return of the repressed. In both the words, he portrays deep desires in disguised forms. In both of them, he craves for the complete, immortal, and happy world. Subjectivity there. He talks about his own experience. He does not talk about some socio-cultural things, right? He talks about his own, how he finds, you can say, the urn, how how he observes that urn, or how he observes, how he enjoys that song of Nightingale, right? So one should read the words as a portrayal of his personal and individual passions. uh, these are the important themes: search for beauty, search for love, search for truth. That is the internal. I think that these are the eternal obsessions of man: love for beauty, truth, and love. Means search for love, beauty, and truth. Right, and they are. He wants to create, or he wants to manifest, or he wants to project them in his unconscious world, and that unconscious word is portrayed in his poetry, in the text. Thank you. My search will continue. I will. I am a humble student. I may have missed many drawbacks, but thank you very much. Now it is over to Principal Ma'am.
Participants, you can raise your own doubts to get it cleared with the speaker.
Ma'am, you may.
Participants, you can please ask your questions and you can interact with the speaker. Yes, ma'am, you can ask your doubts to the speaker. You are presenting, ma'am. You are presenting. Please switch off the video.
I am waiting for your queries. If you have, please unmute your audio and then you can ask.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yes.
Sir, I am Gopika Kulkarni.
Yes.
Sir, it's a nice presentation and I congratulate you and the organizer. So my question is, how can you define the love and harmony are the unifying tool in this polarized world with reference to John Keats?
Yeah. Actually, he is in the search of true love, because like his mother, because it is also written in some stray biographies that his mother was also she was also not very much faithful, right? And she had married to someone, when his father died, she had married to someone else, and there was a tension between mother and the son, right? So you can we can also go in depth about that relation. And he also finds his lover Penny, right? Same as her as his mother, right? So he found that there is something called frailty in love, and that is why he creates, I believe that he creates a picture. In picture, he finds out that there should be true love, love with beauty, or you can say that faithful kind of love. And that's why on that urn, the picture is carved, right? Though the lover cannot touch the beloved, the lover can only play the pipe eternally, but he loves that stagnation. He does not go to the mobility, because he finds that in the real world you cannot find, you can say, true love. And that's why he wants to stay in that stagnated world, though it is imaginary world, though it is the world of you can say feelings or imagination or a created world, but he wants to live in that world only.
Okay, sir. Is he
Sir,
talk about how many in 2 months, sir?
No, I haven't studied that. To the bottom, I am sorry, I haven't studied, because it can be miss the larger project. So I fear that, okay, I should be limited one, right? There should be a limited package, right? And that's why I
Yes,
haven't
yes, sir.
I haven't read. Let me be very honest. I haven't read to the bottom. I have read two poems, and I have examined them, right? Ode to Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian. Okay. Is there anyone?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Rathod, sir.
Hmm.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, we have a question on YouTube. A user asked a question.
Hmm.
Do you think Keats's odes are psychological documents? This is asked by Love English Learn.
I see that should be very exaggeration, because Freudian misinterpretations are also not scientific. We can interpret them psychoanalytically. That should be a very good statement or an answer from me, that we can, right? We cannot say that, okay, they are the psychological documents of his unfulfilled desires, right? But we can interpret them, right, using psychoanalytical tools, strategies, right? So it can be a one miss. For example, we have interpreted text in traditional ways, we have interpreted text in, you can say, feminist ways, we have interpreted text in, you can say, deconstructive mode, right? So in such manner we can interpret the poetry of Miss Keats in psychoanalytical way.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Devashanti. Can we
Yes.
associate negative capability of Keats with psychoanalytical interpretation of Keats?
Pardon, I cannot understand your question.
Can
Repeat.
we associate negative capability of Keats with psychoanalytical interpretation of Keats?
Yes. In some ways you can. You can you can use his concept of negative capability, and you can associate it with that psychoanalytical terminology or theory.
Sir, we have certain Mridu Sharma who is raising her hand. So it would be better if she unmutes herself and asks the question if she wants.
I think that one should not have that repressed desire to ask the question and store it in her or him. He is unconscious. She should talk. She should communicate.
Am I audible, sir?
Sharma, your audio
yes,
is on.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Sir,
yes.
I want to ask about psychoanalytic criticism, that though it gives us a clear understanding of the mindset of the writer, but how far is it justified to just read the mind of the writer and not take into account the socio-historical and cultural conditions in which a particular text is produced? Like in this case, of course, we can say that Keats has his, desires and other things. But having said that, the imagination that he talks about, or the freedom that he talks about in his poetry, or the love or the passion, isn't it attributed to the French Revolution or to the 18th century England. Not so.
See,
How
yeah.
far can we justify this? That do you think psychoanalytic criticism it can do justice to a reading? Though I completely got your point that you were reading it psychoanalytically, but how far is it justified? Isn't it like reading it in oblivion to other facets?
I think I have also made a very clear point that man is a social animal, number one. So he is a product of socio-cultural reality. Now he has his internal ambitions, hopes, desires. Now he wants to fulfill his desires, ambitions, and you can say passions. But looking to that socio-cultural constants, looking to that socio-cultural realities, he has to replace the desires. Right now, whenever we try to examine any writer or any piece of work psychoanalytically, we cannot keep out the socio-cultural realities. So it is the obstruction, means they are the obstructions, they are the hurdles, right? And because of them, the writer has to replace, or the character has to replace the desires, right? So the priority is given to the mental trauma, the priority is given to the mental tension, the priority is given to the mental, you can say, conflict, right? And socio-cultural things or socio-cultural norms or socio-cultural environment is of, you can say, it can influence that mental stress, right? So you cannot I agree with you that you cannot ignore French Revolution, you cannot ignore that socio-cultural realities, because of that socio-cultural realities, this man or this character has to replace his you can say desires. So they are actually complementary to each other.
We have Shazia Kadri who is raising her hand. Shazia Kadri, you may go ahead and ask questions.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes,
you are audible.
Sir, what are your thoughts on identifying personality disorders within the characters of a novel? For example, I'm dealing with Polo Colo these days, so I would speak of that. I have tried to identify ASPD or NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, within the framework of those novels. So, what are your thoughts on those personality disorders within the novels? What would you say?
Actually, the writer you talked on, I haven't heard his name. I'm sorry, and I haven't read him or her. Who is she? Who is he? She? Let me talk about the personality disorder. The reason for personality disorder is also your regressed psyche, your deep desires, your desires which are controlled, managed, and forcefully. You can say you have managed them, right? So when this, for example, when they overflow, you have that psychic, you can say psychic disease called personality disorder, right? Or personality disorder can be one of the reasons can be the socio-cultural socio-cultural environment, as well as the conflict between mental trauma and that socio-cultural environment, right? So you can you have to find out the writer's biography, you have to examine the writer's biography and how he has created the characters, and what are their disorders and how they act. Actually, the actions of the characters may be the reflections of the experience experienced by that author. That is my humble point of view, ma'am.
Sir, may I come in here?
Yes, please.
Rathod sir, Tanveer here. May I come in?
Yes, sir.
I just add upon what you have just said, answering the two questions. One was about psychoanalytic analysis and the sociological perspective. See, when we are dealing with literature, there is only one theory which talks about that we should not take into account the biography or the social impacts upon a work, and that is new criticism. Other than that, every theory has got a scope to include both sociological as well as psychoanalytic. Secondly, coming to Shazia Kadri's question, see, whenever we have disorders, they are only because of our weak defenses. We fail to control these repressed desires or the unconscious mind, which has well been explained by Rathod, sir. And I hope that this will help you a lot in analyzing the character from.
Yes, is there any question?
Participants, if you have got any more questions for the speaker, you can
Yeah. We have a question, sir, on YouTube again. A user is asking, do you think the Odes are a remarkable record of Keats' struggle towards a vision that would comprehend all experience, joy and suffering? So this is again asked by Love English Learn.
Yes, they are. Miss, they are the imaginative documents of as far as this, because this is my topic. I am examining them not from the socio-cultural point of view or not from the traditional point of view. I am examining them right now in a psychoanalytical point of view. So they are the imaginative documents of his repressed psyche. That is my point.
Any other questions from the participants? I think it's time for us to wind up. And good evening to everyone. Yes, please.
May I come in, ma'am? May I come in just for a while before you wind it up?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I was the co-host. So here I would like to thank one of the persons who had helped us a great deal in making this webinar successful on YouTube. He is Mr. Danish Malik. I was not around, fast speed internet, so I asked him to cooperate with us. He did a great job for live streaming this webinar on YouTube. Thank you, ma'am. Now you can go ahead and make it formal.
I also would like to thank Professor Tanvir Ahmed, because it is you can say a mutual effort. It was a joint operation. Last day, madam has told me that okay, there are many participants, and I think we should admit only 100, right? So I do not have that any remedy for that. So I just called Professor Tanvir Ahmed, and he has that remedy, and he has solved our problem. So sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, Tanvir Saab, because due to you, because this is the payable version, and that's why we do not have that limit of 40 minutes, right? Otherwise, we have to rejoin after 40 minutes in Zoom. But this is the subscribed version, and that is why we are on YouTube, as well as we do not have that time constraint or time limit, right? So we can enjoy the session with unlimitedly. Yes, ma'am. Now you can.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Hello. May I say
hello.
something, sir?
Yes.
Sir, this is Deepal.
Yes.
Sir, I would like to say it was a very fruitful, interesting, and enlightening session. Thank you so much sharing your ideas and your analysis based on the life of Keats and his psychological state of mind, as well as his poetry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As all good things have to come to an end in life, so is the webinar also, I too. On behalf of the Department of English, St. Mary's College, I would like to thank the speaker, Mr. Jasvantkumar Rathod, for his excellent knowledge and unbelievable presentation in the psychoanalysis of Keats. I would like to thank you, sir. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I would like to thank Sister Principal and Sister Director for motivating us to organize such webinars for everybody to get used to. Thank you very much, sisters. A heartfelt thanks to our participants who were very much enlightened in this presentation, and a thank you for their doubts, and a big very thank you to the speaker once again. for his excellent presentation and sharing of his knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Participants, please. Sorry, sir.
Please, ma'am. If you have any instruction, please.
Yeah, participants, it is a mandatory to fill up your feedback link to your certificates. Over to you, sir.
Ashwin, sir. Thank
yes.
you, Tanveer, sir, for this awesome webinar. And we had got a very good reviews from the participants. And I cannot thank you enough, sir. And I also thanks once again Tanveer, sir, for the technical support he had rendered us, both in Zoom as well as in YouTube.
I also thank my principal, Dr. G.R. Parmar, for motivating me, because it is his vision, or it is his visionary attitude that has blessed me, that has motivated me to organize such webinars. We have, ma'am, so far we have organized 36 webinars, and we have participants from you can say JK to KK, Jammu and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and it is because of his blessings, it is because of his constant motivation that I am fighting like a hector, right? So thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I congratulate Jaswant sir and Tanveer Ahmed and the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, participants. Thank you, speaker, and a special thanks to Tanveer Ahmed, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.